What's going on? Welcome to Tech with Sean, and I got one of the best CRTs ever made, the Sony KD-34XBR960, for free on Facebook Marketplace. So let's take a look at it and see what it can do. I'd been looking for one of these sets for a while, so when this popped up on Facebook Marketplace and was listed for free, I was quick to jump on it and bring it home. When it was released back in 2005, the Sony XB960 retailed for over $2,000, and it was a top-of-the-line model for its day. It has a big 34-inch super fine-pitch CRT tube display, a whole bevy of different inputs on the back, and some deep-sounding Sony speakers that put modern TVs to shame. I think these things can rival my JBL soundbar almost. They're pretty amazing for some TV speakers. The real draw for me though was that this is one of the only Trinitrons and HD CRT TVs to have an HDMI input. That means it's easy to hook up and use almost any modern device with it. It does only have one HDMI port though, so I hooked up a 4-port HDMI switcher to make life a little easier. This thing works great for the mini retro consoles like the NES, SNES, and PlayStation Classics. It's also pretty sweet for watching older TV shows and movies on. We don't have regular cable or TV in our house, but a cheap Amazon Fire Stick going into the HDMI switcher turned this old dumb TV into a smart one pretty easily. The Amazon Fire Stick remote can even turn this old set on and off and control the volume, so you don't even have to mess with two remotes. Having all the apps on here makes watching movies or listening to music on it a lot simpler, and it really shines at doing both. Now the real reason I'd been looking for one of these sets was primarily for gaming on the mini retro consoles. I like how accessible they've made retro gaming these days, and the customized front ends and the original controllers really add to the experience. But there was something about playing the mini consoles on the 4K TV that just felt off. Playing those old games blown up to 65 inches in my living room just seemed to magnify all the little imperfections and glitches. The combination of a smaller 34-inch screen on this TV, as well as the natural kind of smoothing you get with a CRT display, really makes the retro games feel a lot more like I remember them being back in the day. This set is widescreen too, so even though those older games aren't going to take up the full screen, it's going to allow you to navigate the main menus on these things, which are all designed around 1280 by 720 resolution or 720p. Next month, the Sega Genesis Mini comes out, and I'm really excited to get that and get it hooked up too. But for now, let's take a look at some NES and SNES and PlayStation games running on here through the mini classic consoles. Now the Sony XBR960 is also a pretty choice display for some newer systems too. There are two sets of HD capable component hookups on the back, and I've got my PlayStation 2 and Xbox 360 hooked up to them respectively. Even though the PS2 games aren't HD, they look pretty nice and crisp on here, and it's nice having the widescreen support for the games that support it like Dragon Quest VIII or Final Fantasy XII. Now I really only messed around with some Red Dead Redemption on the Xbox, but from what I remember playing this on a modern LCD TV, this looked a lot better. It wasn't as jaggy, and you didn't notice all the weird artifacting that you get from the scaling and from the sub-native resolution. Now you know I had to try a little bit of PC gaming on there too. I hooked up Forza Horizon 4 for Windows and was running it via GTX 1060. I was running the display at 1080i, and overall it was a pretty good experience. The color and the motion were pretty great, but for a modern game like this, I think I would prefer a higher resolution, higher refresh rate display. Next I hooked up the Nintendo Switch, and running at 720p, it actually looked really good. Here I am messing around with the Dragon Quest XI demo. Even though the Switch is only running it at 30 frames per second, the motion looked pretty smooth to me on the CRT, and the aliasing was far less pronounced to me than it was on my TV, and even better than in handheld mode. I'm not going to spend too much time showing some movie and TV clips because I don't want to get taken down for a copyright violation, but here I'll show some different scenes from different movies and kind of give you a feel of what looking at some older media on this is really like. Overall, I'm really impressed with the KD-34XBR960. It has some obvious logistical drawbacks, but the nostalgic experience of playing those retro games on a CRT display can't really be matched with an emulator filter, and the modern connections and support for HD resolutions mean that it can still support new devices coming out in 2019, and that's ideal for things like these retro mini consoles that have been coming out. If you're interested in picking one of these up, you should definitely look around on your local Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, OfferUp. People are literally just giving these things away. I'm glad I picked this one up. It has a great picture, it delivers some really loud and cleared audio like no modern flat TV does, and I hope it keeps going for another 15 years. If you got any comments or questions about high-def CRTs, drop a comment down below. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.